Hey guys, it's Sack Attack here, and today we're gonna be looking at this piece of shit. This freaking piece of shit right here. We're looking at Illuminati's apology video. So if you guys don't know, Illuminati done a lot of horrible stuff. They they accused Legal Eagle, a lawyer, of copying them. And, they treated their staff at Sad Mill pretty bad, and they done a lot of horrible stuff. So yeah, I'm not gonna really get into it as much. Sonic the Hedgehog Boom made a video about this, so I'm gonna leave his video in the description. Anyway, I'm just kind of here to react to the apology, if you could even call it that.
Hey everyone. Well, there's no really fun or interesting way to start this conversation, so you guys know what you're here for, and I'm just going to jump into it the way I know how to. So I'm sure, as all of you know, many things have been said about me in the past week and a half-ish, and I'm someone who often doesn't speak my side of things, and that's something that's also been noted. Just for kind of full transparency in this,
I already know what's gonna happen. She's gonna try and make herself look like the good guy.
I'm going to be working from some of my notes that I've written to accomplish two main things. The first is mainly to keep me on track with the subject matter and off of tangents. I know I like to go off on tangents and talk about various topics all the time, but this is not that time. The second reason is really just to keep my emotions in check. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk about in the most of this video, to be totally honest with you, are things kind of from the past. They involve old friends, people that I used to consider close friends and I used to trust and really enjoy spending time with. And kind of reopening a lot of these wounds is really painful. It's really about, especially not in this kind of way. After a few days of self-reflection and really thinking about what I want to say and how I want to talk about these things, I think now is the right time. To be perfectly honest, I'm feeling pretty vulnerable to have this conversation with so many people and so publicly, especially since some of the things that I'm going to talk about today are really personal and things in my private life that should have never become content fodder. So let me try something new today, and I'm going to address these issues.
Oh.
Now, before we get into debunking many false statements...
No, I mean, you're literally accused him of copying you, even though he didn't.
...that have been made about me, I want to start with an apology. I have apologized privately to Legal Eagle the day after this incident occurred, though I have not been publicizing that until right now. Maybe this is something I should have said sooner, but I needed the time to think through the events that have preceded. And for those unaware, a short story. My editors came to me about how parts of a Legal Eagle video looked similar to our videos. And then...
You ever heard of fair use?
And there were messages and an email from one of Legal Eagle's editors asking for more information about how we do certain effects. I looked at the compared images that were brought to me and I said, wow, that does look pretty similar, and I impulsively posted about it on Twitter. Truthfully, I should have looked into this more instead of just putting the information out there the second I had a gut reaction about it. I should have asked him what the emails were about, but I didn't, and I made a mistake, and plain and simple, I was wrong. So to Legal Eagle and team, I just want to reiterate that I messed up, and I'm sorry for any stress this may have caused you and of course to your team. I know I apologized privately and removed the tweets with that apology, and I'm now publicly sharing that information with all of you. And I want to extend that apology to my audience and to listeners who are disappointed in me for this, because I'm also disappointed in myself. It was a quick-drawn decision and it wasn't thought out. I promise to do better. Now, as we continue in this video, I do want to give you a heads up that there will be trigger warnings for various sections as needed. I also want to go ahead and let you know that I will be providing a public Google Drive containing any and all relevant information that I will address in this video, similar to how I provide a source document for every episode of mine. Let's start with the first accusation and go from there. After Legal Eagle responded in his tweets, there was another tweet that arose in tandem to this situation. And that tweet was made by another YouTuber called HBomberGuy. And this YouTuber is someone who also creates longer form content. As someone who creates this type of content and researches various topics, the main thing to keep in mind is the source material used. Things
Oh yeah, you also didn't credit. You took a documentary and you didn't credit the people who made it. So that's kind of hypocritical. You're accusing the legal evil of plagiarizing you when you literally plagiarize a documentary without giving them credit.
like articles, interviews, videos, documentaries, academic essays, and so on and so forth. As video essayists, this is a core concept to both Harris and myself. Before I get into the accusation itself, I want to address the topic of plagiarism. And that word has been tossed around a ton, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And I just want to take a minute to define this word. On screen are definitions for the word plagiarism as defined by Merriam-Webster, Dictionary.com, and the University of Oxford. I'm showing multiple sources defining plagiarism, but the overall definition is going to boil down to this. Plagiarism is to take someone else's idea as their own or to not credit the source.
That's exactly what you did. You just took the documentary without crediting the source.
With that definition being clearly identified, let's go ahead and take a look at what Harris brought to the Twitter table. Harris posted this video saying, and I quote, "Personally, at Illuminautii, I would define plagiarism as something a bit more specific. For example, copying someone else's documentary directly into your script." End quote. However, in his own video, he shows where I'm audibly quoting a direct line from the documentary, and even visually you can see it on the screen with the quotation marks. Additionally, you can even see the dual ellipses on either end of that quote, indicating that more of that source was being cited. When you go to my sourcing page for this particular episode, you can also see that the documentary is listed as a source. It has been 3 years since I posted this episode, and I've been really grateful to be able to continually learn and grow with time. Since then, I've learned to be much more overt and obvious with citations, something that may not have been perfectly clear to me 3 years ago. I apologize for the obvious section and for something off of. It will be available in the Google Drive. Children was and still is very important to point out. The quote should have been fully displayed on screen. This was certainly a poor editing choice, and it's an editing style that I no longer utilize, but it's most certainly not plagiarism. But with that being said, I still want to take accountability where it's needed, so I still would like to apologize for this citation not being made more clear visually in that video. Harris, I am also someone who takes plagiarism seriously, and I do see where your criticism comes from, but unfortunately, this was simply the entire visual screen claims are relevant. We have improved since that time. And I continue past.
Oh, here we go. Sad milk.
Before I address any one person individually, I want to kind of cover everything in a general and broader scope regarding Sad Milk. Sad Milk was a collaboration channel started by 6 friends in 2020. It was kind of essentially group Reddit readings and just looking at cringe things online and reacting to it. It was no big deal on the surface. This channel and this project was just meant to be something goofy, easy, and kind of cringy, but a shared channel that we could all get a kick out of. It was just supposed to be a bunch of friends hanging out, reacting to funny images, and just having a good time together. I mean, the channel name was literally called Sad Milk, so it wasn't really something that anyone was taking too seriously. Discussing Sad Milk now in current day is always a little bit bittersweet for me. It was a fun project among friends that turned sour. The issues I'm about to address cost me some of my closest friends at that time. When the Sad Milk channel was formed, I initially took the lead and I made the channel, I made the Discord, I got my mods from my server to
Discord? Hell yes. I'm gonna have a fun time in there.
Help run the new Discord. I hired and managed video editors to help us produce more content. I was the one who was sourcing the topics and files for each video, and I was the one who had set the schedules for recording too. The reality of the situation was this. With creators in different time zones, it was logistically pretty hard to get everyone together at one place in one time. We tried to do it organically multiple times, but unfortunately...
Apparently people are saying you treat the people there badly and you're very manipulative. I don't know.
someone would always end up missing from the recordings. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes into a YouTube channel, and I bore the brunt of it for this project. And it wasn't something that I was doing to have total control, as some members have suggested. I managed the schedules and the editors because it was just something that needed to be done. People weren't stepping up to the plate, and I did, and I ultimately bit off more than I could chew. It was a lot of work, if we're being honest, and I was beginning to burn out pretty quickly. Had I known how I would have been treated through this channel and afterwards, I never would have joined this project. Essentially, everyone in the group had two main responsibilities for Sad Milk. The first was that you had to show up to the scheduled recording, and the second was earnings that were left in the channel were split
Oh
into
yeah, I also heard that. I'm pretty sure she's gonna talk about this, but she doxed someone's suicide note or something at one point.
6 equal pieces for each person. Since this was a project among friends, we all initially agreed to just split the earnings 6 ways, even though I was taking on some extra responsibilities. When it was time to pay the editors, I wasn't answered or told that they would just get it to me later. I had to do this at various points with a vast majority of the members of the group. They would eventually get around to reimbursing me only after I expressed in group meetings how I was upset that I have to do everything, and I also got stuck footing the bill too. What quickly transpired was that members either couldn't or wouldn't reimburse me for the editors. For clarity's sake, I do want to disclose that we as a group later revised our agreement after paying all editors and creative freelancers that 5% of remaining earnings would go directly to me for the administrative evenly majority of the time. But what he didn't share was the context of that meeting, as I've previously said in a meeting. That he did about financially about leaving agreed. Not ready. I wasn't thought that at this point no, I'll have to pick up the pieces to keep this channel going. If I didn't try again, I raised my voice and said, "Can you shut up and let me talk for once?" And he left the call, and that's the last time I ever spoke with him. Looking back at it now, I should not have spoken to my friend like that. I felt that I wasn't given time to process and think things through, and in process of, emotion vomit came out. One topic, I would like to apologize for that, this time publicly. Clearly,
Imagine being stupid enough to actually believe her. Like, also, she takes a lot of, she reports a lot of videos about her because she's a snowflake. So she report all the videos that people make criticizing her. She reports them if she finds them. So hopefully she doesn't find this video.
This was a situation that affected all of us very deeply and personally, and this was an exciting idea, but one that never really took off the worry.
Click. The Click made a response video to her.
I want to take a couple minutes to bring up the Click and the many claims that he made on Twitter recently. The Click brings up how, as he puts it, a very convenient series of videos resurfaced with him saying some not-so-savory things after he left Sad Milk. His old videos, as he puts it, aged like milk. They did. I'm not going to dive into it further. The information's out there if you so choose to look. And as Click stated, those videos are 11 to 14 years old. And to be perfectly clear here, those videos are not any of the reasons as to why we split ways in Sad Milk, as Click tries to insinuate. Even back in 2020, I had stated that those videos had nothing to do with the ending of Sad Milk. I was actually unaware of those videos at the time of our friendship, but had I been aware around graphic imagery
I want to get to the part where she talks about the suicide note thing.
And inappropriate behavior around minors. Before I go any further into this, I want to mention that can change. That being said, at the time in 2020, Click was still using horrifying language and slurs that have long been deemed unacceptable. I'd now like to address the Click's claims that I had any involvement in trying to gain control of his Discord server by, as he says, tossing around accusations at staff. Because unfortunately, there were some truly sinister things occurring in the Click's Discord that were brought to my attention. For this next section, I would like to provide a trigger warning. There will be mentions of explicit sexual language, mentions of pedophilia, graphic imagery, and inappropriate behavior around minors. Before I go any further into this, I want to mention that there's going to be resources in my description box regarding what I'm about to discuss now. I do think it's relevant to bring up that in 2019, the Click's channel was terminated by YouTube for sexual content. At the time, a few YouTubers, including myself and Oz Media, band together to help reinstate Click's channel. Oz spoke to his MCN representative, and I had shared your role creator, so those shared mods.
Like she mentioned, a lot of inappropriate, messed up stuff. So I'm just gonna skip this. So this video doesn't get taken down.
Came I went to contact someone clearly discussing such an inappropriate relationship. In fact, this was right off the heels of one thing that a minor who explicitly states that their parent is in the room with them, so they were hiding their phone. I would like to point out that a common tactic for abusers who are attempting to groom children is that they expose them to pornography and other sexual content in an attempt to desensitize the child. I'll
Okay, well,
provide
I think she's trying to say that the clique is a pedophile or something.
Rain's page on
I'm skipping it. I'm skipping a lot of it. So
grooming for further information. And if you're a child currently in a similar situation, I urge you to speak to a trusted adult or authorities. And again, resources will be provided below. Having to relook at these messages again still makes my stomach turn, even 3 years later. When Click didn't initially take action, I switched tactics with him and I called One Topic, who was and still is, to my understanding, one of the Click's closest friends on social media. I got into it, he was horrified, and he said, and I quote, "I've read one and I don't want access to those screenshots. Individually seen them for myself. Nor do I have an environment what happened. A serious situation in his search that lies, as he said on to occur in your discords to do the will take out in children. Adults should not be having sexually charged conversations with you or sharing sexually explicit photos. In the Click had more account has Legend team or like I learned from with you. Some of the most confusing I've had to deal with. I'm going to address his concerns, though a lot of it is fairly tricky since he hinges his accusations on anecdotal commentary. In responding to his baseless claims, I will provide evidence as necessary, as well as point out when things I mention are anecdotal, so I completely understand if you choose to dismiss my anecdotal commentary as it arises. His thread on Twitter makes many claims about who I am as a person and how I've treated him. I hope to come at this with a level head and a very thorough explanation of events. With that being said, let's start with Wonder's accusation of wage theft. That's a big one, and it's important. I talk often about how paying your people is important. So I know how ironic it must look to have that accusation thrown back at me. To begin, let me...
wait, people are saying you don't pay your staff? Yeah, I kind of don't think you do. You're going to make yourself look like the good guy. You're going to pull a darn man.
Explain Wonder's employment history with me. During Sad Milk, all of us were contractors to that channel. We were paid as contractors so we could handle taxes in our respective countries on our own, as not all members were American citizens. As many of you are aware, video editing is largely considered gig work, and in the industry, most folks are contractors and work on a variety of projects for different clients at the same time. During December 2020, like all of the members of Sad Milk, Wonder was considered a contractor. On December 24th, 2020, at 5:39 a.m., I received a message from Wonder letting me know that he took a shot at reworking a video that had already been edited by a different contractor. I want to clarify. I did not ask him to do this. This was something he did of his own accord. I responded to him, letting him know that his edits would go live at 1 p.m. on December 24th, 2020. I don't want to claim to know what goes on in Wonder's personal life, but claiming that he missed Christmas with his brother and father, I just don't know how that's possible when the video was finalized early morning on Christmas Eve. And Wonder, I do want to thank you again, as I previously had verbally done so, for editing that video. It was great to have a video go live the day before Christmas. As for his claim that he didn't get paid for his work for more than half a month, I would like to let everyone know that Sad Milk's pay. To continue the discussion of his employment with me, I will have to give some much-needed context. For this section, I will be providing screenshots where applicable, but some of this is anecdotal, as much of our conversations were either over voice calls or in person. Further corroborate friends throughout often people and unmotivated and he had explained happened
Where's the part where you talk about the suicide note?
In his past. I was saddened, felt alone in Colorado, content with his life in Texas. Oz Media and I had just moved into his newly purchased home in April 2021, and he decided...
I thought that this was supposed to be an apology. Doesn't really seem like an apology so far.
To welcome Wonder into his house. Unless Oz Media was doing so without my understanding, Wonder was not charged any rent, utilities, or internet for sharing our living space. Later in May 2021, we welcomed Wonder into the house. Oz even personally drove down to Texas to get Wonder and his dog, James. I want to explain my perspective a little bit here. At this point, I was finally starting to feel comfortable with my channel, and I felt that I was in a good position to be able to help somebody out and truly change the lives of one of my close friends. I was in what I felt was a privileged position, and I wanted to share that with someone I cared about and wanted to see succeed. With that in mind, I decided to hire Wonder to do some editing work for my channel. And now we can get 21 and was salaried at $50,000 a year. To be frank, I just numerous live streams that I did so that I could post them onto my secondary, all of my and receipts to reimburse for to follow company protocol.
I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I don't really want this video to be too long.
I have a at the Now, let's move on to the legalities that Wonder brought up in regards to how he claims that he ended up with no car, barely any clothing, no money, and no home. Which leads me to one of the stupidest mistakes of my life. After repeatedly hearing Wonder say how desperately he needed a car, and after believing what he said about how miserable he was, I decided to try and help my friend in a way that I now realize was pretty idiotic. I look back at this decision with regret and embarrassment. This part will get a little nitty-gritty with the details, but I believe I need to fully flesh out all of the information to give you the full picture. After many in-depth discussions with Wonder, I made the decision to purchase a vehicle that he had already agreed to enter into a rent-to-own contract with said vehicle. On June 12, 2021, Oz $346 on the loan and not just went legal agreement on the second month K in his bank account. I'd like to reiterate that unless Oz was charging rent without my knowledge, Wonder was living rent-free while earning $1,923.08 every other week, and would have to pay only $588.34 once a month. I don't claim to know the ins and outs of his finances whatsoever, and I very much was caught back at the of my vehicle. The first was the proof of insurance that Wonder never provided. Insurance that is something federally required, clearly cast in title documents on me.
I don't believe a thing. I don't believe a thing she says.
I had the extra key. I had my insurance card earned as support for 2020. Take a moment to bring up the condition of the vehicle upon it was littered in the car. It contained dirt socks, and no patient continues to mean to me.
I want to get to the part where she docks on suicide note.
I know here for the I just want to.
I think this is it. right here.
To give a quick trigger warning here for the mention of suicide and suicidal intention. After the car was back in my possession on the 29th of July, Oz and I received numerous messages from Wonder, which will be available in the Google Drive. What I specifically would like to highlight is that he insinuates that he had intention to and was taking action to arm himself to end his life. In a message directly with me, he explicitly told me that, quote, I was legit trying to get into my dad's gun cabinet to fucking kill myself. Either way, out of concern, I called the Austin Police Department non-emergency line to ask for a wellness check. And when I explained to the operator what was the situation at hand, they immediately transferred me to the 911 dispatcher. I then read the messages to them, and I gave the 911 operator the last known place of his residence in Texas, which was his dad's house, to perform a wellness check. The operator then told me not to arrange anything unless the police force is present. In his messages, Wonder states that he received a call from his therapist, which ultimately pulled him out of his intended plan. And let's take a moment to discuss the therapist. During his time in Colorado, he expressed that he wanted to seek therapy, and I think that's a fantastic decision. To help him with his process, I messaged my old therapist, who I did a lot of EMDR therapy with and helped me immensely. On screen is me reaching out to her to see if she was accepting any new clients. Confidential details are going to be censored in order to keep Wonder's privacy and integrity. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have recommended a therapist who was so life-changing for me to somebody else. Therapy is a continual journey. You can come in and out as needed. And unfortunately, after I recommended Wonder to this therapist, there began a conflict of interest, and I could no longer in good conscience see her for her services. Wonder, I am so incredibly sorry that I unintentionally created a conflict of interest between
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Two of us in regards to this therapist. I did not mean to make that an issue between us at all. When Wonder arrived in Colorado, to say he packed lightly would be a bit of an understatement. He arrived with barely any clothing, no food for his dog, Not even a collar for his dog, just a bandana. As Wonder mentions on Twitter, that short amount of time we lived together was absolutely a nightmare. The tension began with our dogs and his unwillingness to help ease the situation between our pets. I did everything I thought of at the time to introduce James and Casper in a way that facilitated a good relationship between the dogs. They met on neutral ground at a dog park and only had supervised
Just talking about dogs or whatever now.
play at the house, Casper, and bit his ear so hard that Casper bled. At this point, I took Casper to live with my sister as I no longer felt comfortable having Casper alone in the house with Wonder and James. I reached out to my good friend who's also a dog trainer to see if he could help me with the situation. The second incident occurred on June 24th, 2021. On the night of the 23rd, Oz and Wonder went out together. I was exhausted, and so before they both left, I let them know that I was going to bed, which is exactly what I did. I was woken up at 2:30 in the morning by Oz because Wonder was panicking because James was gone. Wonder admitted that he took James outside to go potty, then having forgotten he had done so, he left James outside while Wonder left the house with Oz. That means that he left his own dog outside unsupervised for hours on end in the middle of the night. If I was aware that James was outside unsupervised, I would have done everything to ensure his safety and brought him back inside. There was unfortunately nothing I could do as I was already downstairs in my room sleeping by the time this was all unfolding.
Yeah,
When I was woken up by Oz, I got on the Nextdoor app.
I think I'm gonna end this here. And another thing is, you never apologize to Cruel World Crazy Mind. You haven't mentioned her once in this video. But yeah, I'm gonna actually end it here. So leave a like and subscribe for more content.